Stoicism, the philosophy of the strong, silent, independent man. He is calm, unbothered, at peace in his solitude. No one has ever seen him break, or panic, or lose control. We don't even know if he feels anything at all. And if he does, he would never show it. He is too strong, too stoic for that. But what if this image, this hardened exterior, is not Stoicism at all? What if it's a twisted shadow of what the philosophy was truly meant to be? Because today, Stoicism has become a badge for emotional suppression, a mask for insecurity, and a quick hack sold to men chasing power, dominance, and control. In this video, we uncover the dark side of modern Stoicism, not to tear it down, but to reveal what's been lost, to reconnect you with the truth, with a philosophy not of indifference, but of strength through understanding, courage through clarity, and power through peace. The purpose of this video is simple, yet powerful: to cut through the noise and expose how a philosophy rooted in virtue, discipline, and service has been distorted into a shallow performance of emotional numbness. This is not just a philosophical correction, it is a personal reckoning, because what you believe about strength, about manhood, about emotional control, shapes how you live, how you lead, and how you suffer. And if you've been led to think that being stoic means feeling nothing, showing nothing, needing nothing, you've been misled. True Stoicism is not about shutting down, it's about waking up. It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming clear. And in a time like this, where uncertainty is constant, trust is fractured, and purpose is rare, we need more than empty mantras. We need a grounded framework, a way to face life with presence, with power, with principle. That's what this message is about. Reclaiming the heart of Stoicism, not for performance, but for practice, not for show, but for strength, so you can stand firm in a world that pulls at your every weakness and walk forward with unwavering self-mastery. The problem lies not in Stoicism itself, but in how it's been misinterpreted, packaged into a version of masculinity that glorifies detachment and emotional suppression. What once guided men to live with virtue, reason, and compassion has been stripped down into a cold caricature, the unfeeling, unreachable, emotionless figure who equates silence with strength and isolation with superiority. This distortion is not just misleading, it is dangerous. Studies show that men who adopt this naive version of Stoicism report higher levels of loneliness, dissatisfaction, and psychological distress. Why? Because in trying to become invulnerable, they disconnect from the very tools that build resilience, connection, reflection, and emotional clarity. When emotional distance becomes emotional denial, men begin to equate support with weakness, vulnerability with failure, and expression with shame. The result is a mental prison, disguised as control, a quiet kind of suffering, hidden beneath the surface of composure. This is the dark side of modern Stoicism, the lie that strength means suppression. But the truth is, real Stoic strength is not about erasing emotion, it's about understanding it, managing it, and channeling it towards something higher, something stable, something lasting. Because without this deeper clarity, the philosophy becomes a mask, and that mask becomes a trap. Stoicism, in its true form, was never about becoming emotionless. It was never about pretending not to feel. The ancient Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, did not preach detachment from life. They taught alignment with it. They spoke of pain, of grief, of fear, but more importantly, they spoke of mastery not over the world, but over one's own mind. Stoicism is the art of creating space between stimulus and response. It is the disciplined practice of observing emotion without being ruled by it. Seneca himself wrote that the wise man may tremble, may turn pale, may feel pain, but he remains centered. He remains anchored, because his identity is not built on momentary feelings. It is built on principle, on values, on chosen action. The Stoic does not run from emotion. He meets it, studies it, and rises above its grip, not by force, but by awareness. This is the heart of Stoicism. Not hard-heartedness, but deep understanding, not indifference, but intelligent self-command. To be Stoic is not to be cold. It is to be calm in chaos, unshaken by storm, clear in the fog of confusion, and grounded in a world that constantly pulls you toward reaction. This is not suppression. This is strength. Cognitive distancing, and it is one of the most crucial disciplines for anyone who seeks to master himself rather than be mastered by his emotions, impulses, or chaotic thoughts. At its core, cognitive distancing is the ability to observe your own mind without identifying with every thought that passes through it. It is the calm realization that your thoughts are not commands. Your feelings are not facts. Your inner narrative is not always telling you the truth. The Stoics taught this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." And Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled in the heart of storms, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Cognitive distancing means you are no longer blindly reacting to every emotional spike, every anxious projection, every mental loop that threatens to pull you off course. Instead, you develop the inner capacity to step back, to look at your thoughts the way a commander looks at a map. Strategically, calmly, without panic. When something upsetting happens, the average man lets his mind spiral into judgment. This is bad. This always happens. I can't handle this. I'll fail. They're against me. But the Stoic stops. He doesn't suppress the thought. He watches it. He asks, "Is this true? Is this useful? What else might this mean?" He puts distance between stimulus and response, and in that distance, he plants clarity, decisiveness, and self-control. That is power, not the loud, desperate power of emotional outbursts, but the silent, measured strength of someone who commands himself. This is not something you turn on once and expect to maintain. It is a practice, a mental muscle that must be trained every day. You train it by becoming aware of your internal monologue, especially when you're under pressure. You catch yourself when a thought begins to spiral. You recognize it not as reality, but as a temporary lens. You challenge it. You question it. You sit with it without letting it dictate your behavior. Just because your mind says something doesn't mean it's the final word. It's one version, one impression, and you have the ability to reshape it, replace it, or reject it. That ability is what separates the reactive from the resilient, the emotional from the rational, the weak from the disciplined. Modern psychology calls this cognitive diffusion, mindfulness, or meta-awareness. But the Stoics practiced it long ago without labels, because they knew the battlefield of life begins in the mind. And a man who cannot control his mind cannot control his destiny. This is why Marcus Aurelius journaled constantly, because writing down your thoughts forces you to examine them. It gives you distance. It helps you see your mental habits and redirect your focus. This is why Epictetus spoke in sharp distinctions between what is in your control and what is not. Because the moment you confuse the two, your mind becomes a weapon aimed at yourself. Through cognitive distancing, you build an internal fortress, not by walling off your emotions, but by refusing to be ruled by them. You can still feel anger, but you don't act in rage. You can still feel fear, but you don't cover. You can still feel doubt, but you keep moving forward, because you are no longer your thoughts. You are the one watching them, choosing them, refining them. You train this in small moments when someone interrupts you, when your day doesn't go to plan, when self-doubt whispers in the dark. You don't numb yourself. You don't explode. You breathe. You step back. You ask, is this thought helping me become who I want to be? If not, you let it pass, and you choose another, one rooted in strength, in clarity, in the values you have chosen to live by. Over time, this discipline transforms everything. You become calmer, not because life is easier, but because your mind is no longer an enemy. You become stronger, not because you suppress emotion, but because you've trained yourself to carry it with wisdom. You become more dangerous not to others, but to chaos. Because no matter what the world throws at you, your response will not be dictated by noise. It will be forged in stillness. This is tool 3, cognitive distancing, the mental posture of the Stoic, the man who does not react like a leaf in the wind, but responds like a mountain unmoved by storms. The man who has mastered the space between thought and action, and in that space has found his strength, his silence, his command. This is not a theory. It is a weapon. Use it. 2. Control your perception, because perception is the foundation of all thought, all action, all power. It is the lens through which your entire life is filtered. If that lens is cracked, clouded by fear, warped by ego, distorted by emotion, then everything you see will be off balance. You will call opportunity a threat. You will call feedback an attack. You will call growth pain, and pain punishment. But when you take control of your perception, when you train your mind to see with clarity instead of chaos, you begin to gain something that most men never touch: a stable inner world. One that cannot be knocked over by insult, rejection, loss, or betrayal. That is why the Stoics placed so much weight on this single act, choosing your perspective. Epictetus said it directly: it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. In other words, it's not the world that destroys you. It's the meaning you assign to the world. One man faces a challenge and collapses. Another man faces the same challenge and sharpens his focus. The difference is not in the event, it is in the interpretation. That is perception. That is the battlefield where most men lose the war before it begins. But if you train yourself to pause just for a moment before reacting, you give yourself the power to reshape the outcome. You create a gap, and in that gap lives your freedom, your strength, your clarity. When someone disrespects you, you can either react with emotion or respond with intelligence. When plans fall apart, you can either spiral or adapt. When fear rises, you can either obey it or study it, and then rise above it. This is not a one-time decision. It is a discipline, a Stoic ritual of the mind. You must practice it every day, every moment. When you wake up late, when your boss criticizes you, when someone betrays your trust, when the world doesn't reward your effort, in all these moments, you must ask yourself, what am I choosing to believe right now? What meaning am I assigning to this? Is this a curse? Or is this a classroom? Is this the end? Or is this the next test I was born to pass? When you learn to ask those questions, you stop living like a victim of circumstance and start operating like a strategist in battle. You don't move randomly. You don't respond impulsively. You move from principle, from perspective, from power. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire under constant threat, disease, war, treachery, and yet his meditations are a manual of peace, not because his world was peaceful, but because his mind was. He understood this truth. External chaos is irrelevant if internal clarity is strong. That is the essence of Stoic perception. Not just seeing things as they are, but choosing to see them in a way that empowers you, that sharpens you, that refines you into something stronger than what you were before. This is not delusion. It is wisdom. It is a form of mental alchemy, turning pain into perspective, turning struggle into strategy, turning every experience, no matter how difficult, into a step forward. And when you live this way, truly live it, you become untouchable. Not because the world won't try to break you. It will. But because it no longer has access to the part of you that decides what anything means. You own that now. And in owning that, you gain a power that cannot be bought, cannot be faked, and cannot be taken. The world can shake. People can leave. Plans can fail. But your perception, disciplined, refined, and rooted in truth, will remain firm. That is Stoic perception. That is the first and greatest tool of inner mastery. And without it, nothing else can stand. 3. Amor Fati. The love of one's fate, and it is not merely an abstract idea or poetic sentiment. It is a radical way of living, a full confrontation with the truth that life will not unfold according to your wishes, and that your true power lies in meeting that truth, not with resentment, but with resolve. The Stoics did not teach us to passively accept whatever comes. They taught us to welcome it, to greet adversity as a teacher, misfortune as a mirror, and fate as the exact shaping force we need to grow. Amor Fati is the rejection of victimhood. It is the refusal to be at war with reality. And in that refusal, in that conscious choice to embrace the unpredictable, we gain a level of strength that few ever touch. Because while most people spend their lives trying to twist reality into comfort, the Stoic bends himself into a shape that can endure and thrive regardless of what reality delivers. Amor Fati demands that you stop asking for ease and start preparing for impact. It means you don't need everything to go your way in order to stay grounded. You don't need the world to be soft in order to be strong. Instead of wasting energy wishing things were different, you conserve that energy. and apply it to what you can control: your mindset, your attitude, your ability to stand firm when others fold. When tragedy strikes, Amor Fati says, "There is something in this for me. I will not flee. I will not collapse. I will remain." When your plans fall to pieces, Amor Fati whispers, "Now you see who you really are. Now you find out what you're truly made of." When life breaks your heart, your finances, your expectations, Amor Fati reminds you, this is not the end. This is the beginning of the real work. This is where the weak turn bitter and the strong turn inward and rise. The modern world has conditioned men to believe that control is found in domination, that success is found in forcing outcomes, that peace is found in having everything go exactly to plan. But Stoicism, real Stoicism, obliterates that illusion. You are not in control of the world. You never have been, you never will be. But you are in control of how you respond to it. You are in control of whether you see setbacks as signals to stop or as sacred invitations to sharpen. You are in control of whether you hold your pain as a burden or transform it into power. That is Amor Fati. The mindset of turning every experience into fuel, of turning every bruise into a badge, of saying, "I did not choose this, but I will use this. I did not expect this, but I will meet it. I will absorb the impact and move forward, not because I'm unbreakable, but because I've stopped needing to be." This level of mental discipline frees you. It liberates you from the constant anxiety of needing things to go your way. It unchains you from the prison of entitlement, the belief that life owes you safety, success, comfort, or fairness. Life owes you nothing, but you owe yourself everything. You owe yourself the commitment to grow through whatever life gives. And Amor Fati is the gateway to that growth. It is a compass in chaos, a philosophy of fierce acceptance, not to shrink, but to stand taller, not to avoid suffering, but to meet it with purpose. When you live this way, nothing is wasted. No mistake, no failure, no heartbreak. Everything becomes part of your training. Every moment becomes a tool. Every loss becomes a lesson. And slowly, you become something that cannot be shaken. Not because the world is kind to you, but because you have trained your soul to rise through whatever the world brings. So Amor Fati is not a retreat. It is not apathy. It is the ultimate form of power. To see the fire, step into it, and say, "Let it burn away what is weak. Let it refine what is true. Let it forge the man I was meant to be." This is tool 2. Embrace your fate, not blindly, but bravely. Love it not because it is easy, but because it is yours. And in doing so, you will become the one thing the world cannot manipulate. You will become unshakable, not because fate is gentle, but because you have chosen to walk in harmony with it, quiet, focused, unmoved, relentless. That is Amor Fati. That is the Stoic path. So now you understand, the true Stoic is not emotionless, not detached, not hardened beyond feeling. The true Stoic is deeply present, deeply aware, and deeply disciplined. He does not collapse when life turns violent. He does not surrender to noise, or panics, or impulse. He sees clearly. He accepts fully. He responds with strength that is calm, and calm that is earned. Through perception, he commands his lens. Through Amor Fati, he embraces the unknown. Through cognitive distancing, he governs his inner world. like a king guards his kingdom. This is not philosophy for the passive. It is war strategy for the mind, and if practiced daily, it will make you unbreakable. Not because the world becomes softer, but because you become sharper. Life will not get easier, but you will become stronger, clearer, quieter, more direct. You will stop reacting like a man who needs the world to behave. You will begin moving like a man who knows who he is, no matter what the world becomes. That is Stoicism in its truest form. Not armor to hide behind, but a fire that forges clarity, presence, and unwavering self-mastery. So take what you've learned, train it, live it, let it temper you. And when the world tests you as it will, you will not flinch, you will not fold, you will move forward, steady and silent, because the battle has already been won within.